Good evening. I'm really happy to be here with you tonight to share a story, the story of opening Tynkertopia, a STEM community center in Flagstaff. It's a story of learning by doing. It's a story of learning through my mistakes. It's a story of building creative confidence, of learning to be a risk taker. It's a story of contributing to my community. And it's a story of taking many of the meaningful experiences in my life to come up with a creative and engaging sort of capstone to my career as an educator. My story begins over 7 decades ago, when, as a young toddler, curious toddler, I wanted to take things apart. I wanted to tinker. I wanted to play and discover what was inside things. What would I find? Could I put them back together? I loved to do puzzles. And I lived in a family where my parents and grandparents encouraged us to learn about the world around us. My dad was a forester, so we learned the leaves of the trees and the footprints of the animals. We learned about birds. We were always immersed in our environment. And we were encouraged to tackle small mysteries and solve small problems, and later on to solve bigger mysteries and solve bigger problems. But most importantly, to be self-reliant and to be independent in our thinking, in our learning, and in our lives. Now, let's fast forward to 1967, which turned out to be one of my greatest learning by doing challenges. As a first-year teacher, I was assigned to teach a class to high school seniors called non-college physics. These students had been in high school 3 years and had yet to pass the one science course that they needed to graduate from high school. So my 22 students, predominantly male, none of them had yet met this requirement. And so my challenge was to figure out how to help them get through my course and how to help them get through high school. It took me the first 2 agonizing, frustrating, exhausting weeks of my first year of teaching to discover something I never thought was possible. They could not read the science textbook. That was a shock to me. So it was also a challenge. How was I going to help them get through this 1 year of science? So I took a risk. I abandoned my physics textbook and decided to take a more non-traditional approach to teaching and learning. I tried out a hands-on approach. And so for the rest of that year, we spent learning together with our heads underneath the hoods of their hot rods, their motorcycles, and together we learned about mechanics and light and heat and momentum and all of the different science concepts that were required for them to pass my course. So it was indeed a learning by doing experience, and it is probably not an exaggeration to say that I learned more than they did. I'm happy to announce that all 22 graduated from high school after they passed my course called non-college physics. Now, let's fast forward to 1978. By this time, I already had 10 years of experience as a teacher and a much more firmly felt knowledge that a learn by doing philosophy was really something that I could embrace and feel comfortable about. So when 2 students with cerebral palsy entered my classroom, I had another challenge. How was I going to help them become more self-reliant, independent learners? At that time, I knew nothing about computers or technology, but I decided to write a grant to the United Cerebral Palsy, and I was able to get each of these students an Apple II computer and the assistive technology that they needed to become more independent learners and no longer rely on the adult scribes for all of their writing. Now, let's fast forward to 1995, when I earned my Ph.D. and became a professor at Arizona State University. This was another area of learning by doing. I'd never worked with university students before, but after reflection, it was no surprise that these learners learned in the same way that the younger learners I had worked with before. It was a different sized individual, but the learning that went on was very, very similar. So I felt very comfortable embracing my hands-on learning by doing approach. And by then, I had really learned that the pedagogy that I had been using was actually very well researched and based on the work of Vygotsky, Piaget, and Dewey. Now, let's fast forward to 2008, when in my mid-60s, I decided it was time to retire. I had a wonderfully successful and rewarding career as a professor at ASU. And so retirement seemed like a way to just sit back and think about what had happened during my career as an educator. Little did I know that retirement really wasn't for me. So I realized at that point that in all of my years of earning a salary as an educator, I really never felt like I had worked a job. Instead, I felt like I had a passion, a calling, an identity. I was a teacher, a lifelong learner, a risk taker, a person who loved to learn by doing, a person who just loved to learn. And so now let's fast forward to late 2017, when I had a choice. Good one. We did have to pose this photo because this is not me. And Brandon told me I wasn't allowed to move outside the box, but the whole theory and thinking behind Tynkertopia is that we think outside the box, and so I need to quickly return. I could choose a rather traditional way of spending my retirement years. I might sit in a rocker and knit and read. I might go out in my garden and tinker around. I might even take a cruise. Or, you guessed it, I had choice 2. Choice 2 was to take a risk, to invest some of my life savings into an endeavor where I had passion, where I could share everything that I had learned over my last 50 years as an educator with the students in Flagstaff and northern Arizona. And so Tynkertopia was born as a place where kids and adults could come to learn, to tinker, to discover, to explore, to learn by doing, and to feel comfortable in that environment. And when I thought about how to design this environment, I not only wanted to focus on STEM and STEAM skills for young people, I wanted to give them the opportunities to develop those personal skills, those social skills that are so needed in our society today. I wanted to give them opportunities to become good at teamwork, to build up perseverance, to learn flexibility, to learn collaboration, teamwork, to be empathetic, to be able to adapt easily to new situations. But most importantly, I wanted them to develop confidence. I wanted them to develop confidence as learners, as risk takers, to feel that they were in charge of their own learning. And I specifically wanted to focus on what I call creative confidence, the ability to let that creativity in each one of us come out, and also approach life in a way that encourages us to examine new ways of solving problems and exploring those issues which are so important in today's world. And so I'd like to now introduce you to some of the Tynkertopia kids. I'd like you to meet Harper. Although I didn't know Harper when I founded Tynkertopia, I soon learned that she was a young woman with creativity, with confidence, and with a great deal of curiosity. And so Harper, and as well as other kids, so much epitomize the Tynkertopia slogan of think with your hands and learn by doing. That really is the summary of what I have learned during my journey as a 50-year journey as an educator. Think with your hands, learn by doing. Now let's meet one of the families that comes and works and grows together in an environment designed to be interdisciplinary and intergenerational. And let's meet a few of our junior interns. These are middle school students who want to enhance their STEM and STEAM learning, but they also want to take the opportunity to develop their communication skills, their leadership skills, and help other children learn not only about STEAM and STEM, but to build those soft skills that we were talking about earlier. Or meet Nathan, who introduces himself as an inventor. He and the other children use the engineering design process while they're at Tynkertopia. They ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. They figure out, what is the problem I want to solve? What is it that I want to build? And then they brainstorm all the different ways that they might do it and choose a solution. They create a plan. They make a picture. They make a materials list. And they create their vision, make it a reality. And they try it out. What works, what doesn't work. Then they try to improve it, which leads them back to probably a new question. And so the learning by doing cycle goes on. Brandon was one of those young folks who used the engineering design process to build a fully working catapult out of all of the recycled materials that we have available at Tynkertopia. And meet Stella, 3-year-old Stella, who when she comes to Tynkertopia announces, it's Tynkertopia time. She knows it's a safe and welcoming place where she can experiment and explore, learn through her mistakes, and learn by doing. And meet Anya, who, after she took our workshop safety course, spends hours in our workshop building, creating, turning her visions into reality. And finally, let's meet our future engineers and designers, our future builders and problem solvers. And last but not least, let's meet Jesse, who comes to Tynkertopia very frequently. He's in love with the Ghostbusters, and he's always creating helmets and shields and proton packs when he comes out of our recycled material. He's one of the many kids that come with caseworkers from the Guidance Center, from the STAR program, from Child and Family Services, and other similar organizations. Hence the Ghostbuster mask, as I don't have photo releases to use his photos. He is an amazing young man who shared with me this thought. I always knew I was smart, but I never knew how smart I was until I began designing and building at Tynkertopia. And so I'd like to share with you and thank all of the children and the families who come to Tynkertopia to create, to imagine, to learn by doing. Tynkertopia has been open just over a year, and we celebrated recently with a ribbon cutting and a proclamation from the mayor declaring September 6th Tynkertopia Day. So get ready for next year. We're going to have Tynkertopia celebration on the 6th of September. And during the 13 months that we have that have passed since we opened our doors, we have welcomed over 7,000 visits by kids, their parents, their grandparents, even a few great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, caseworkers, and community members. It's been an amazing adventure to see the number of people that are availing themselves of an opportunity to tinker, to learn, to imagine, to create, to learn, to think with their hands, and to learn by doing. So, when faced with the choice 2 seemed like the best idea. And if you are still wondering, is Dr. Alice, as the kids call me, crazy to be spending her money and her energy on a passion project in her retirement years? Please know this. I love what I'm doing. I love learning. I love being at Tynkertopia and interacting with young people. It's keeping me young at heart, engaged in my community. And even though it was scary, doing something new, taking risks, gaining the confidence to feel like I could begin a nonprofit organization, even when I had had no experience doing anything like this, and gain the confidence to invest in self-fund Tynkertopia. It has been one of the most amazing experiences in my life of embracing learning by doing. And I'm not alone. Each of you can follow your dream and passion and build up the creative confidence and the risk-taking ability to follow your life streams. So please come down to Tynkertopia. We're on 4th Street, and come to tinker, to play. It's been my great honor to share with you my story this evening. Thank you.